Hello and welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet, the daughter.
And I'm Kevin, the dad.
And this week, we are talking about Elvis Presley, the Sun Sessions. So, Dad, what do we need to know?
All right, well, we need to know that this is going to be a Cliff Notes version of Elvis's life because there's just so much ground to cover.
Yep.
But for a really deep dive into the man's life, read Peter Guralnick, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Guralnick's 2-volume biography. Volume 1, Last Train to Memphis, The Rise of Elvis Presley, and Volume 2, Careless Love, The Unmaking of Elvis Presley.
Ooh.
Together, they total over 1,300 pages. I've read both years ago, and just utterly fascinating.
Cool.
Okay, so Elvis Aaron Presley was born January 8th, 1935 in Tupelo, Mississippi to Vernon and Gladys Presley. His identical twin brother, Jesse Garrett Presley, was stillborn, altering history in just unfathomable ways.
Yep.
The Presleys lived in a shotgun shack, which they lost in 1938 after Vernon was found guilty of altering a check.
Ooh.
Elvis and Gladys lived with relatives whilst Vernon served his time. When E was 10, he received a guitar for his birthday. Allegedly, he was hoping for a bike or a shotgun. In 1948, E and family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, living in rooming houses for nearly a year. Eventually, they got a 2-bedroom apartment. Elvis went to Humes High School. He'd stand out from his classmates when he grew his sideburns and styled his hair with rosewater and Vaseline.
Ugh.
He'd hang around Beale Street, taking in the scene with the blues music and flashy clothes. He'd be wearing those clothes in his senior year. He entered the talent show at school and became very popular. He also soaked up different kinds of music, country, rhythm and blues, and gospel. In August 1953, Elvis went to the Memphis Recording Service, Sam Phillips' precursor to Sun Records. E cut My Happiness, and That's When Your Heartaches Begin. Receptionist Marion Kiesker asked Elvis what kind of singer he was. I sing all kinds. She asked him who he sounded like, and he replied, I don't sound like nobody. Sam had Marion write down E's name, and she noted, good ballad singer, hold. Elvis went to work for the Crown Electric Company as a truck driver. He also auditioned for local bands, being told at one point he'd never make it as a singer. Meanwhile, Sam Phillips was looking for, and I quote, a white man who had the Negro sound and the Negro feel.
Oh, boy.
I could make $1 billion.
He wasn't wrong.
He had E come in to sing a ballad, Without You, but it wasn't working. Sam did ask Elvis to sing as many numbers as he knew. Sam also had 2 musicians, guitarist Scotty Moore and bass player Bill Black, come in and record with Elvis. Nothing was happening during the session until the end when Elvis started messing around with a 1946 Arthur Crudup song, That's All Right. Scotty and Bill joined in the messing around. Sam asked them what they were doing. We don't know. Sam told them to do it again and roll tape. And thus, rock and roll was born.
Well...
Feel free to insert eye roll.
Yeah.
Anyway, local DJ Dewey Phillips, who was no relation to Sam, played That's All Right on his show. The phone lines lit up. Dewey interviewed Elvis on air and asked him what high school he went to clarify his color, as listeners thought Elvis was black. Elvis and Scotty and Bill hit the road. E developed his rubber legs moves, which caused the girls in the audience to lose it. Elvis grew more confident in performing. He played the Grand Ole Opry once, and then their rival, the Louisiana Hayride. The Hayride signed Elvis for a year's worth of Saturday night appearances. Hayride house drummer DJ Fontana was added to the mix. Bob Neal, who was Elvis's manager at the time, brought him to the attention of musical promoter Colonel Tom Parker,
God damn it.
a.k.a. Andreas Cornelius van, I'm going to get this wrong, Kwijik, an illegal Dutch immigrant. Parker was Eddie Arnold's manager at first, then Hank Snow's. Parker signed Elvis to join Snow's tour, and by 1955, he was Elvis's special advisor, with Bob Neal still managing. He went about trying to secure a major label contract for Elvis. Even Sam Phillips knew for Elvis to be successful, he'd have to move to a larger label.
Yeah.
Sam, however, wanted $40,000 to release Elvis from his contract. Parker went to Hank Snow's label RCA. They were interested, but they didn't want to pay more than $25,000. Parker and Snow eventually persuaded RCA to do the buyout. They did. Oh, and as of March 1956, Colonel Tom Parker would be Elvis's manager.
Oh boy.
Also in March 1956, Elvis's first RCA album, Elvis Presley, was released. It became the first rock and roll record to hit #1 on the Billboard album chart and would stay there for 10 weeks.
Whoa.
E would appear on the Milton Berle Show, on which he was filmed full body doing his thing.
What did Milton say?
Don't know. He didn't have a problem with it.
Oh.
Let's see. Steve Allen had Elvis on his show, but he had Elvis wearing a white tie and black tails and have him singing Hound Dog to a basset hound.
Yeah, which he hated in the Elvis movie.
And then there was Ed Sullivan. He had E on 3 times, filmed mostly from the waist up. He's a fine, fine boy, ladies and gentlemen. That's my bad Ed imitation. Anyway, in November 1956, his first movie, Love Me Tender, was released. There would be others. Lots of others.
And not all of them good.
In December of 56, he dropped by Sun, where Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, and Johnny Cash were recording. Thus, the $1 Million Quartet was born.
Mm-hmm.
The recordings would not be released until 1981, and an import at that. Eventually, they did get released in the U.S. In 1957, Elvis cranked out 2 more movies, Loving You and Jailhouse Rock. He also bought Graceland, an 18-room mansion for himself and his parents. He got his draft notice in December that year, but was deferred so he could finish filming that immortal movie, King Creole.
Oh boy.
Elvis served 2 years in Germany from March 1958 to March 1960. Whilst out there, he was introduced to amphetamines and Priscilla Beaulieu. Beaulieu?
Beaulieu?
Sounds good. Whom he'd marry in 1967. Meanwhile, back in the States, there was enough Elvis material to keep the fans happy during E's absence. And as John Lennon said once, Elvis died the day he joined the Army.
Really? That's an interesting theory.
Yep. In May 1960, Frank Sinatra, of all people, hosted a Welcome Back Elvis TV special because Frank didn't like those rock and roll cretinous goons and all that.
But you know who did? Nancy. She loved him.
Oh, yeah, so there you go.
She's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Dad, you gotta have him on.
Do it or I'll never speak to you again. Probably
Okay.
was how it went.
Okay, but then you gotta sing a Nicky ballad with me about 6 or 7 years from now. That'll go to #1.
But I did see the clip where they sang together and it was pretty fun.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was good.
Okay. As for the rest of the 1960s, lousy movies, sometimes up to 3 a year.
That's amazing. It kind of is.
And unfortunately, a lot of lousy music, as he was doing just mostly soundtrack albums, cranking out songs like Do the Clam.
Oh, God.
Poor guy. And at this point, there was no touring. If you wanted to see Elvis, you had to go to the movies. He married Priscilla on May 1st, 1967. That's my bad Elvis imitation. And their only child, Lisa Marie, was born February 1st, 1968. Exactly 9 months to the day.
Oh, no.
Well, he got married on May 1st.
Oh, exactly 9 months to the day.
Yeah,
Sorry.
9 months later.
Yeah.
Yep. Musically, unfortunately, Elvis was becoming irrelevant. You know, and Dylan, the Beatles, the Stones, and Elvis was being left in the dust.
Oh, yeah, as Paul McCartney said, we didn't mean to make him irrelevant. It just kind of happened.
But in 1968, something inside woke him up. He did a Christmas special, and the only thing that makes it a Christmas special, it was aired around Christmas.
And fun fact, I learned this from Jess when they covered the Elvis movie. The same guy who produced that, you know what other Christmas special he produced?
Nope.
The Star Wars Christmas special.
Wow.
Yup.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That was one and done. Wow.
Hey, but this one was one and done, but it was one and done way better.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. And the thing was, like, the Colonel, he wanted Elvis in, like, you know...
Santa suit and ho, ho, ho.
And 12 songs.
Jingle
and
Bell
12
Cheer.
Christmas songs, and that was going to be it.
Yep. Well,
But
they
nope.
did one, right?
Well, I can't remember.
I thought they did
Oh, yeah,
Christmas.
yes.
Yeah.
It was the Dirty Nasty Christmas song. Oh, yeah. Anyway, the special was just called Elvis, but now it's known as the 68 Comeback Special. Elvis recorded from Elvis in Memphis, which showed he could keep up with the upstarts. He cared again, and he toured, but U.S. only. If he had left the country with the Colonel, Parker would not have been allowed back in the United States. Papers, please.
Maybe that would have been a good thing.
Yeah. And he also played Vegas. At an after-show press conference, a journalist referred to Elvis as the king. Elvis pointed to Fats Domino, who happened to be there, and said, "No, that's the real king of rock and roll."
Oh, at least Elvis knows.
Chuck Berry was not available for comment. And speaking of touring, I gotta put this in, at the end of Elvis's shows, the band would play him out. He'd go backstage, get in his limo, and drive off, and then that immortal announcement would be made.
Elvis has left the building.
Yep. Then the 70s.
Troublish?
He met Nixon,
Yep.
separated from and eventually divorced Priscilla, had the Aloha from Hawaii TV special, which was aired globally, backslid creatively, relied way too much on prescription-happy Dr. Nick, got bloated, struggled to get through shows, and died in his bathroom in Graceland on August 16th, 1977, officially from a heart attack.
I still would have liked to have seen what he would have done if he did the Star is Born movie with Barbara Streisand. That would have been great.
He was 42 years old. When asked what he would do now that Elvis was dead, Tom Pockerian said, "Well, I'll go right on managing him."
Oh, God, that's sick.
Since then, Elvis has been one of the most top-earning dead celebrities, according to Forbes magazine. As of 2011, there have been 15,000 licensed Elvis products. And 12 years later, I'm sure there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
RCA kept putting out compilations and best-ofs haphazardly until they got Ernst Michael Jorgensen. He came in and actually gave the reissues some thought. And then Sony eventually bought RCA and kept the product coming. Graceland opened to the public as a tourist destination in 1982, and it was registered in the National Register of Historic Places in 1991. Elvis has also been seen working at 7-Eleven.
Huh?
Or maybe it's an impersonator.
Oh,
Well, it was always like these alleged Elvis sightings. Oh, yeah, he's working at the 7-Eleven. No, he's working at Wendy's. No,
oh, he's not dead.
No, he came in a UFO and he wanted to take me away. There's also been many biographies about Elvis, first-person accounts, third-person accounts, you name it.
Documentaries?
Documentaries, bio movies, the latest being 2022's Elvis. And one of the few ones that I saw was it was a made-for-TV one directed by John Carpenter and starred Kurt Russell as Elvis, and he did a really good job.
I heard that one was good. I might see the other one where they have Jonathan Rhys Meyers as Elvis and they have Cousin Eddie as the Colonel.
Oh, yeah.
That was on CBS in 2012.
And so many actors have played Elvis, and one of the strangest, and I know you hate this,
Yeah.
but I think one of the funniest portrayals was when Nicolas Cage played Tiny Elvis on that SNL skit. I mean, it's just out and out strange, but it makes me laugh. And it mostly consists of Tiny Elvis pointing at things, saying how big they are. Like, man, look at the size of that lamp. That thing is huge.
I put it up there with the Marlon Brando banana dance in terms of stupid sketches that Dad has sent me that I don't like. Sorry, Dad.
And then also in the skit, members of his Memphis Mafia would laugh their heads off and just say, "Good call, Tiny." And I think it's, maybe I'm out on a limb here, but I think it's kind of a commentary about the Memphis Mafia that no matter what Elvis would say, it was like the right thing to say. Like, "Good call, Elvis. You said the right thing, Elvis." Anyway. Oh, and lots of songs about Elvis.
Oh, yeah.
Lots.
Yep.
One of my favorites is Tennessee Plates by John Hyatt.
I listened to that one that you sent me. Yep.
And it's about a guy who decides to steal one of Elvis's Cadillacs. And the best line is, "Anyway, he wouldn't care. Hell, he gave him to his friends."
Yep.
But it all comes down to the music. And these days, I cannot remember the last time I heard one of his songs on commercial radio. However, you do have options. You can go on Sirius XM to hear him on Channel 75, all Elvis all the time. And there are also internet stations where you can get all the Elvis that you possibly want.
Oh, sure.
The last, what I thought was the last time I heard any mention of Elvis was when you showed me Isabella's Instagram
Oh,
of
yeah.
the Elvis playing cards that Uncle Michael gave her, and she was trying to figure out, why did he give these to me for my birthday?
Yeah.
I'm sad and confused. But I thought that was the last time because about 2 weeks ago, Manny's daughter, Lena, gave the eulogy at Aunt Maria's funeral service, and she talked about how Aunt Maria loved Elvis and played him all the time. And she would sing Elvis songs to Lena, and Lena just grew to love Elvis too. And Lena quoted some lines from Love Me Tender, and just like...
Everyone burst into tears.
Yep.
Aww.
And also, I gotta say, when I mentioned this podcast to Andy, he declared that he would become the Jewish Elvis, Melvis Pressman.
So,
Which it could happen.
So what are some Jewish versions of Elvis's songs?
I'll
have a Blue Hanukkah Without You.
Return to Sender, because I didn't order that. Love Me Tender Beef Brisket. I don't know. Anyway, Elvis was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986, the Hall's first year. So, obviously a no-brainer. As for me, I'm pretty sure I heard his stuff as a kid. I know Nana has, at least I know she has Blue Hawaii, the original on vinyl.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then I'd hear like his songs on the radio, but it just never blew me away for some reason.
You know what I remember with Nana and Elvis?
No.
When we went to her house, the 68 comeback special was on TV, and Nana's watching and goes, I was crazy about Elvis. Now I don't get it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. My Aunt Maureen's ex-husband, Jimmy, was in the band part-time, and he would sing some of Elvis's stuff. And that's kind of what I associated Elvis with when I was a kid. When I got into music, I taped a CD set of his songs. I think Mike let me borrow. And it was like 40 songs or something. And I gotta say, I wasn't really impressed. There was some good songs here and there, but a lot of it was the soundtrack stuff. So I was kind of expecting something more. Then I heard about the Sun Sessions, and I picked up the vinyl back in it might have been the late 70s or maybe it was the early 80s. And then the CD version, which we're going to go through, came out in 1987. And RCA actually did a pretty good job, as Ernst Jorgensen was not yet on board. The first 16 tracks on which we'll focus are the master takes. Then there are 12 additional tracks of outtakes and alternate takes.
Oh, yeah.
The booklet starts off with what's called an abstract. It lists the songs in alphabetical order. It tells when each song was recorded and released and the source from whence it came. Peter Goralnik wrote 9 pages of liner notes presented in teeny-weeny Istrano vision.
Oh.
So break out the magnifying glasses, which I did. It's really well written, though. The songs themselves were recorded between July 1954 and July 1955. RCA/Sony has reissued the Sun songs in different packages over the years, such as 1999's 2-disc Sunrise, 2004's 1-disc Elvis on Sun, and 2012's 3D set A Boy from Tupelo, the complete 1953-1955 recordings. So you're just going to get a lot of alternate takes and outtakes and what have you. As for the original vinyl, the Sun Sessions, it was inducted into the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry in 2002. So let's jump into the songs.
First track, That's All Right.
Is it?
I guess so. This is country boy Elvis before he became the rock and roll man. I think he's doing his best Carl Perkins impression here. He's just living life happy as a clam. His girl's not good for him? That's all right. He's gonna leave her, and that's all right too. It's hard to believe this was the same Elvis who'd take the world by storm, and this was the same man who had parents' panties in a bind. If they listened to the early Sun Sessions, he'd seem like a boy who'd just blush and say things like, gosh and shucks, ma'am. His playing is great, though, and I'll give him that. And while I smiled and nodded pleasantly, I was pretty bored. As for Rod, well, we all know how I feel about him after Jeff Beck. Singing is fine, but for God's sake, does it need to be bloated to 6 minutes?
Well, a lot of that's instrumental. This was written and recorded by Arthur Big Boy Crudup in 1947 for RCA. Some consider this to be the first rock and roll record. Could be. I mean, I've heard Rocket 88 is considered the first one. No one really knows for sure. There's a number of candidates. Some consider Elvis's version, released in 1954, to be the first rock and roll record. You could make a case for it being the first white rock and roll record.
Yes.
Nowadays, it's classified as rockabilly, along with a lot of the other stuff that's on here. This song is 69 years old, so it's hard to really understand how radical Elvis's version was when it first came out. People went crazy for it. Like the best rock and roll, it's simple. Elvis on acoustic guitar, Scotty Moore on electric lead guitar, and Bill Black on bass. Elvis's singing manner is as carefree as the lyrics. Any way she does, that's all right with him. Mom and Papa told him that girl he's fooling with ain't no good, but that's all right. And thus history is made in 1 minute and 57 seconds. And yes, there have been a lot of remakes. And I have Rod Stewart's great, I say, sloppy version from his Every Picture Tells a Story album. And yes, it is 6 minutes long, but to me, it's never felt that.
It would feel that way to me. Next track, Blue Moon of Kentucky. Okay, now we're getting warmer. His voice sounds a lot more like the Elvis I knew who became famous. I would love to hear Lux Interior do a cover of this if he was still alive, because his psychopunk Elvis impression is iconic. Elvis's love has left him, and he wants the Kentucky moon to shine on the girl so he can find her. I found it more enjoyable, but still not enough oomph yet. As for the cover they did on King of the Hill, go listen to it if you can. It's really fun, and Connie adding the violin gives it a nice bluegrass touch.
Okay, this was written and recorded as a waltz by bluegrass giant Bill Monroe in 1945. His version was added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry. When Elvis, Scotty, and Bill got their hands on it in 1954, they changed it from 3/4 time to 4/4 time. It started as a goof, but Sam Phillips thought they had something there. Elvis's voice is an echo, and it makes the song sound mysterious. The real mystery is why Elvis doesn't sound so down and out. He's singing to the moon to shine on the one that's gone and left him blue, but he's going to be all right, like in the first song. Mm-hmm. Bill Monroe was not too keen on Elvis's cover until the royalty checks started rolling in.
And now it's like, oh, never mind.
Then he liked it mighty fine. Monroe would go on to record a hybrid version of Blue Moon of Kentucky, starting it off at 3/4 time and then switching to 4/4. And you may ask yourself, yeah, but what is a blue moon?
What is a blue moon, Dad?
I'm glad you asked. According to the Maine Farmer's Almanac, it's the 13th full moon in a year rather than the usual 12. But the almanac relies on a tropical year rather than the usual January to December year.
Oh.
A tropical year runs from one winter solstice to the next. So it's one season that contains 4 full moons rather than 3. When a season contains 4 full moons, the third one is considered the blue moon. Why? Because only then will the names of the other full moons, such as the moon before Yule and the moon after Yule, fall at the proper times relative to the solstices and equinoxes.
Wow.
And there will be a test on this. And we actually have
a super blue moon, right?
Yep. Towards the end of August.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next track, Good Rockin' Tonight. Now we have the Elvis that made parents panic. Just what are you going to do with my daughter behind the barn, Mr. Presley? Well, you won't harm her, that's for sure. And he's starting to be more suave and debonair in a way that made me smile and slightly blush. I'm pretty sure they lifted the Let's Rock verses out of this song and transplanted them into Jailhouse Rock. This song was better than the previous track, but I'm just waiting for him to let it rip.
Okay, this was written and recorded by Roy Brown in 1947. This version is also considered the first rock and roll record. On the record label for the 78 single, it reads, Rocking Blues with Instrumental Accompaniment. Brown's version sounds a little like a Louis Jordan tune to me, which means you're in for a fun listen. Elvis amped it up. He left out the section of names Brown mentions in favor of repeating, we're gonna rock, 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 and rock they do. That's pretty much the song's message. And call it sacrilege, but I think Jerry Lee Lewis did this song better.
Okay.
Now in 1984, Good Rockin' Tonight made it on the charts courtesy of the Honey Drippers, who were Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and Jeff Beck.
Cool.
And some other guys. It hit number 25 on Billboard's Top 40. Their version is more boogie-woogie. They kept the lines about Caledonia and Deacon Jones. And also, for some reason, they renamed it Rockin' at Midnight. Kind of the last type of music you'd expect to hear on the radio in the 1980s.
Well, if they're fans of it, they can record whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, but I mean, for it to actually get that high in Billboard's Top 40 in the middle of New Wave, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it wasn't...
Second British Invasion...
It wasn't such a fad. I mean, the Traveling Wilburys were able to do it with original music that sounded like that style. Maybe people were craving for something like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Next track. I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine.
I do.
Okay, Elvis sounds a bit too boyish here. I think if he wants to sound more seductive, he should have sung in his lower register, not his falsetto. Maybe he just wanted to have some fun in the song, as teenage young lovers do, but Elvis in his higher register is not something I'm a fan of. Every time his voice kept going lower, it felt like he was teasing me because I know the performance he could deliver if he kept it low the whole time. There's one part that's interesting around the 1 minute 40 second mark when he says his love makes him hot and he wants more because he gives it some vocal grit, but then it goes away and I'm disappointed again. Hardly the Elvis of my dreams. As for the caravels, Andrew's sister's light, cute but no substance. Sorry.
Okay, well, get this. This was written by Mac David for the Disney film Cinderella.
Really?
It didn't make the final cut, and I think I can see why.
I can see why, too.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Just doesn't seem Disney appropriate for that time.
No.
Patti Page first recorded it in 1950. Elvis recorded his version in September 1954, because he don't care if the sun don't shine, because he gets it going on with his baby at night. Yeah, it's definitely not going to make Cinderella. Lots of kissing, so much so it's tough to keep score. And you'd think there's drums on here, but there's not. It's the sound of Bill Black's bass. Sam Phillips just had a way in the studio to get that sound. And yes, I have another version by British Invasion cult cuties, the Caravels. And yes, their vocals are light and airy, but it's a cute version. There's no other word for it, and I like it. I like this stuff.
All right.
That's just me. I need my Caravels fix every now and then.
Okay. Next
Because
track.
they're singing just to me, damn it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, next track.
Milk Cow Blues Boogie, as opposed to beef cows or something, I don't know.
Beef.
I wish this was a literal song about Elvis's cow not giving him any milk a la Jack and the Beanstalk, so he's got to sing a song to get it to produce milk. That would have been bizarre, but interesting. We have a fake out at the beginning where Elvis starts singing, then says, "Hold it, fellas, that don't move me. Let's get real gone for a change." Then you realize this song is Elvis taunting his ex by comparing them to a cow, which was pretty cool to hear Elvis being taunting and mean, because we think of him as lover boy or weepy broken-hearted lover boy, not pissed off and bitter lover boy, which was cool to hear. A track where Elvis has fun in an unexpected way for us.
This is a blues written and recorded by Kokomo Arnold in 1934. And like you said, Elvis stops slow, then Elvis's version starts slow, then stops, and he utters the immortal words, "Hold it, fellas, that don't move me. Let's get real going for a change." And that line about getting real going also inspired the name of a bass duo band somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s called Gone. And the band kicks it into high gear, and you've got to move. There's a couple of things going on lyrically. Elvis sings about his missing milk cow, if we want to take it at the literal level. If you see her, ride her home, because he ain't had no milk and butter since she's been gone. Now, we can take that at face value, that E and Kokomo are really singing about a cow, or, yeah, it could be a metaphor for a woman running around town sharing her
Milk and butter.
dairy products, yeah. Because the next thing, he sings about how he tried to treat his woman right night and day. And, ooh, she's going to regret treating him bad someday. She's going to need her daddy's help, and, ooh, then she'll be sorry. That'll show her. Second best line in this song, "Aw, let's milk it."
Oh, God.
I have another version by Rick Nelson, and it's solid, but it's nowhere near this level.
Next track, You're a Heartbreaker, Charlie Brown. Oh, just You're a Heartbreaker.
Was that a Peanut special for real?
No. Then my first note is, no, not Pat Benatar. That's a different one.
Oh, man, that's the same first line I have.
Man, this is insult a minute Elvis, and I kind of dig it. Elvis lists all this person's worst traits and says, "Guess what? I got someone better. Psych!" You think he'd be like, "But I love you anyway," and he pulls out the rug from under her feet. We should bring back the phrase quarrel fetcher. It is truly a unique insult among the laundry list Elvis has here.
Okay, what is a quarrel fetcher?
Quarrel fetcher.
Oh, what's a quarrel fetcher?
Someone who's like looking for fights everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, not the Pat Benatar song. Which does remind me of when George Steinbrenner was trying to sing it on Seinfeld.
Really?
And he just kept screwing up the words. Oh, it was hilarious.
Like Mr. Peter Schmidt trying to sing the Bangles, Walk Like an Egyptian. Maybe that's where they got it from.
Could be. Anyway, this was written by Jack Sally. Heartbreaker was the B-side to Milk Cow Blues Boogie. Elvis is letting this woman have it. You're a heartbreaker, love faker, dream maker, don't you mess around. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong song. She is a heartbreaker and love faker, but he tells her he found someone who'll be true, so she can't break his heart anymore. And I swear you can hear the smile in Elvis's voice as he writes off the heartbreaker. The jauntiness of the music helps Elvis's mood too.
Next track, Baby, Let's Play House. This was featured in Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. In the movie, it's done as a medley with Louisiana Hayride, and it's the first song the Colonel sees him perform. My favorite part of that whole scene is when Elvis can't figure out why the girls are screaming, and his bandmates go, "They like it when you wiggle! Give them more!" And then Elvis's mom praying, "Please don't let them hurt my baby." Elvis is singing "I Want to Play House with You" is probably one of the most creative ways to ask, "Hey baby, want to marry me?" And he's flirtatious and playful. Very sweet, but Austin Butler's performance in that movie is the one that'll be seared in my brain forever. Sorry, Elvis.
Blues written and recorded by Arthur Gunter in 1954. Elvis recorded it in 55. He changed one line, "You may get religion," to "You may have a pink Cadillac." And that's rock and roll, baby. The song starts with Elvis singing the word baby about 27 times. Then he goes into how he wants his girl to come back so he can play house with her. The mind reels. Elvis also closes the song with 27 more babies. John Lennon took the line, "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man," for Run for Your Life, which after he said, "I've always hated Run for Your Life."
Yep. Next track, I'm left, you're right, she's gone. Elvis admits he was wrong about this girl, and he sounds so bummed you wish that his friend wasn't right about this girl. I love the title alone, but it kind of sets you up because you think the wordplay is going to be funny, and instead it's a sad twist. Poor Elvis. You get the sense he'll be all right. He just needs a minute to take a deep breath before he gets back to it. And he does, falling in love with someone else by the end of the song, so there's a happy ending after all. Yay!
Yay! This is the B-side to Baby Let's Play House, one of the all-time great song titles. Elvis has to admit to a woman friend that she was right about this other woman he was seeing. Friend said Elvis's heart would get broken, but did he listen?
No.
So she left him and she's gone. But Elvis doesn't care because he realizes his friend was his true love all along. This is like the plot to a ton of movies like Some Kind of Wonderful, and probably a couple of books like Yeah, David Copperfield, I'm Looking at You. Only the friend Agnes had to wait out a marriage because David's first wife, Dora, she got pregnant, miscarried, and died from the miscarriage. But it was she lingered for a long time.
Yep.
And then David realized, holy Toledo, it was Agnes all along.
Which anybody reading the book could have said, yeah, you idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And drums, real drums are on this song, played by Jimmy Lott, not DJ Fontana, as was usually assumed.
Next track, Mystery Train. What is it with guys and trains? James Brown had the night train, Chuck had the downbound train, Ozzy has the crazy train, and Elvis has the mystery train. There was even a song I sang in middle school choir that might have referenced this song called 900 Miles, had the lyric, "Well, this train I ride on is 100 coaches long," which that song is hauntingly beautiful. Go Google it. The musicians do a good job capturing the train's movement and chugga chugga, but there's not much going on with Elvis performance-wise, and the lyrics are too simple to the point of being bored. There's better train songs to listen to. Go listen to Chuck's instead.
First written and recorded by Junior Parker in 1953 for Sun Records. Some of the lyrics date back to a Carter family song from 1930 called Worried Man Blues. Elvis recorded his version in 1955. It was his first recording to make him a nationally known country music star. The mystery train took Elvis's baby, but then brings her back. And to me, the mystery is, why did the train take her? Where did she go? What did she do? And you know what? We will never know. Plus, the phrase mystery train is never used in the song.
Nope.
Never, not once. And I love this song. I love it. This is my favorite Elvis song. I love the mystery.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I love the mystery surrounding the lyrics. I love the music. I love Elvis singing the woo-woos at the end. And I also love that it was in the SNL Tiny Elvis skit. So, what's not to love? And also, I like trains. Cues ASDF.
Oh man, maybe I should have played. Maybe Tom Scott should have gotten the rights to that for this song. All right, next track. I Forgot to Remember to Forget. Musically, this sounds like the precursor to I'll Have a Blue Christmas Without You. They even play similar notes during the short instrumental at one point. Elvis forgot to remember to forget this girl. I guess his depression post-breakup is so bad he can't help but replay the tape over and over. But it doesn't sound too sad. His tone is more like, well, that's a bummer, because at least he's thinking of her, I guess. Pleasant song, but that's about it. As for the Beatles, Aw, George is a baby. But he sounds kind of bored, and I don't think he's nailed his voice by this point. And the guitar sounds like what you'd hear on SpongeBob, the music that would be played in the background when SpongeBob and Patrick were about to get up to no good.
Yeah. This is one of the other great song titles, written by Stan Kessler and Charlie Feathers. First recorded by Elvis in July 1955 with Johnny Barreno on drums. He gives the song a clip-clop, horse-trot kind of feel, which may be one of the reasons it hit #1 on the country charts. Elvis is really feeling it on this one. He can't get her off his mind because he forgot to remember to, well, see the title. With this song, I think he really showed how much command he had over his voice. It hints at what's in store for the next 20 years. And yes, the Beatles covered it for the BBC in May 1964 with Lonesome George Harrison on lead vocals. It was officially released in 1994 on a 2-disc live at the BBC set. Good cover. And I think George is still trying to gain confidence. To me, when I hear it, it's like he sounds nervous. Plus, they're doing it live on the radio, so it's just going out to like so many listeners. So that could be something too.
Next track, I Love You Because. This is an Elvis song that should be played at more weddings. There's nothing wrong with Love Me Tender or Can't Help Falling in Love with You, but this one is just as simple and true with its message of love. And I feel like this is Elvis being truthful. No matter what the world will say about me, I know your love will only see me through. Which, yeah, that didn't last. Still, this is one of those songs where by itself it could easily be a poem. It's a beautiful love song and I enjoyed it very much. Oh, and if you want your heartstrings to be tugged, listen to the duet of this song Lisa Marie recorded years later with her dad's original, which I know you have opinions on.
I have opinions. Written and recorded by Leon Payne in 1949, it hit #4 on Billboard's Country Western chart and spent 32 weeks on what they called their C&W disc jockey list. It was Payne's only song to make the country charts, but sometimes one song is all you need, because it's been covered a lot. Elvis recorded his version in July '54, and it opens with him whistling. This is an all-out ballad. The playing is understated, and to me, I feel like I Love You Because is John the Baptist to Are You Lonesome Tonight's Jesus.
Okay.
They just have kind of like the same feel. You'd have to do a comparison, but trust me. Lyrically, it's straightforward. Elvis loves her for 100,000 reasons, but reason 100,001, 'cause you're you. And yes, as for that duet between Elvis and Lisa Marie, I am just not a fan of duets from beyond the grave. I'm just not. I think it tarnishes the dead artist's legacy. Plus, what with them being dead, you know they didn't have any say in this whatsoever. So all I can say is, thanks for nothing, Natalie Cole. Ooh, and Paul, George, and Ringo, Free as a Bird, there was a reason that was just a demo. I like to think John tore George a new one in the afterlife, and he's just waiting for Paul and Ringo to show up so he can give them what for.
Oh, is that the new one that dropped?
No, I haven't heard that one, and I really don't want to hear it.
I haven't yet. Maybe I will. I'll listen to it so you don't have
it's
to.
It's like I hate doing this, but it's like I have to pretend they don't exist even though they do exist. It's just not right. It just is not right.
Well, I'll enjoy it.
You do that.
Next track, Blue Moon. This was another song I didn't realize I'd heard before because Cher and David Bowie sang a snippet of this in a medley of songs from like the 50s and 60s and 70s. But the choices Elvis made with his voice here are wonderful. First, he has his high falsetto that works here as he croons, and it's amplified by the echo effect. Then there's the clip-clop of the instruments as he plods along under the moon. I think I like this better than Blue Moon of Kentucky because it's so different from what I've heard Elvis do before. And I have an idea. If you ever wanted to make a country romance film a la Ghost, this is the song to play. It would be so cool. As for the Marcells, when I went to go see South Pacific at Providence Country Day, when Greg was in it, our tenant's son, they did a cover of this specific arrangement during the intermission, and they had a guy who was able to do the scatting, wad 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 nang nang, and I prefer the Marcells version immensely. It's just so much more fun.
This was written by Richard Rodgers and Lawrence Hart in 1934. It's a standard, which means that Frank recorded it, and so have many others.
Everybody else since Frank.
Yep. Elvis's version starts off with the clip-clop rhythm used in I Forgot to Remember to Forget. Then Elvis opens his mouth, drenched in echo, and it's otherworldly.
It's cool.
Especially his hair-raising moans. And the thing is, the song's content is about him singing to the blue moon, about hearing his prayer and sending him someone to love. It runs counter to the atmosphere Sam Phillips created on this recording, and yet somehow it works. This is my second favorite version of this song. The first, of course, is the Marcel's 1961 doo-wop version, which to me, it's just untouchable. I don't know what Rogers thought of it, but...
I probably like the residuals.
Oh, I'm sure. That always makes up for it.
Next track, Tomorrow Night. This is Elvis's Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? It's pretty much the exact same story. Elvis gets 7 minutes in heaven, and he wonders if the feelings will carry over till tomorrow.
Do I get minute 8?
I like men singing songs like this because it shows vulnerability, but compared to Goffin and King, they perfected the story of this song. So I gotta give it to them years later. This song is fine, but we don't need it. Goffin and King will do more than fine.
Okay. This was written in 1939 by Sam Coslow and William Gross. It was first recorded by Horace Heidt and his Musical Knights, also in 1939. And I gotta say, Horace Heidt was name-checked by Spike Jones and his City Slickers in their song Chinese Mule Train.
Oh, boy.
Okay. This is also recorded in 1948 by Lonnie Johnson. His version would go on to become a blues standard. Elvis recorded his version in 1954. Other versions have been recorded by Tom Jones and, I should have hunted it down, Bob Dylan. And yeah, lyrically, it is a precursor to Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? And if you have to ask,
then yeah.
You kind of know already.
You can do the math.
Yeah, the arrangement clip clops along again. Elvis's voice does all the work to put this across, and he does it with such ease. If she doesn't remember any of the stuff she said and did, she must be crazy.
Next track, I'll Never Let You Go, Little Darlin'. Man, I don't know who mixed this, but parts of it were too loud. When he came in at the beginning, his voice sounded absolutely lovely. And at first I thought, this could be a lovely first dance song for a wedding, or even a first dance between a father and daughter. Then the rest of the song happens, as we discover he's nursing a broken heart, and then it kicks into a rock and roll ballad when it was perfectly fine as a heartbreaking love ballad before. Maybe he's joyful because his love has come back to him, which, I could get, but it would be too jarring for me to find actually enjoyable. Started out beautifully with a good, strong beginning, but just ended in a way that for me fell flat.
Okay. This was recorded in September 1954. Elvis will never let her go. He's sorry he made her cry, but he'll never let her go. Uh-oh. Anyway, for about almost 3/4 of the song, it's a ballad. Elvis crooning his butt off. And then he gooses the song a little bit, which is unexpected. And all I can say is this must have thrown off dances on the floor. You slow dancing, and all of a sudden, wait, what the heck happened? What do we do? And the couples are just standing there going,
Like that scene in the pilot of Freaks and Geeks where her little brother is about to dance with Cindy in the slow dance, and then it kicks into the fast portion of the song. I forget what song it was, but
I'm going to remind you of what that song is.
Oh, what was it?
Led Zeppelin would pull this stunt 14 years later in 1971 with Stairway to Heaven. You're just dancing and...
It was Stairway to Heaven in Freaks and Geeks?
That's the only thing I can think of.
Let me Google it just in case. Keep going.
Because that song was infamous for, everyone's, who had first heard it. Yeah, slow ballad dancing, and all of a sudden, when it kicks ass at the end, you're just standing there wondering, what do we do? I don't know how to do this. Help.
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 Help, please. Anyway, next track, Just Because. There's some excellent guitar playing here with the instrumentals. Elvis's girl thinks she can get away with so many things because she's pretty and her mama thinks she's wonderful. And because she thinks she can get away with anything, that also means she thinks she can get away with having Elvis spend all his money on her and also sacrificing his dignity. Needless to say, Elvis is none too pleased, and as he says to her, I'm done and Santa won't pay your bills no more. The one part that made me raise an eyebrow was when he said, you made me lose all my women. Was he saying a bunch of side chicks? Or is he referencing the other women he loves in a different way in his life, such as his mother or grandmother whose sister they just disapproved of this Jezebel and left?
Oh, that's a good point.
I guess we won't ever know. It's better than the last one, and it was great trying to see Elvis feel empowered enough to leave this woman.
This was written in 1929 by Joe and Bob Shelton and Sidney Robin. First recorded by Nell Stone's Hawaiians that year as well. Polka musician Frankie Yankovic, no relation to Al, though they did collaborate, recorded the version in 1948, which you listened to part of.
Oh, sorry, really quickly. The song we were talking about before in Freaks and Geeks, it's Styx's Come Sail Away.
That could do it.
Anyway, yep.
Okay,
Back to the show.
Frankie Yankovic's version was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. Now, Elvis rocks out on this one. Just because she thinks she's all that doesn't mean she's going to use Elvis all up. He did spend all his money, though, but finally saw the light, so he's through.
He's
Great
done.
song. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Final track, Trying to Get to You. I listened to two versions of this song, the original and the 68 comeback special. The difference between the two is one is a boy and the other is a man. I thought I'd like the 68 version better because that's classic Elvis and I'm done with falling for boys. But I think both were good for different reasons. The first version is a boy who's done something admirable to win the heart of the person they love. The second is a man who knows how to prove himself and is going to show his sexual bravado to get the girl. The performances were great in both, but I didn't think much of the song itself. As for Ricky Nelson, very charming and romantic, and I think he struck the balance perfectly.
This was first recorded in 1954 by the Eagles.
Oh.
No, not those Eagles. This was a Washington, D.C. R&B vocal group. Elvis recorded his version in July 1955. He'd recorded again in 1968 as part of his comeback special. Elvis actually plays piano on this one.
Cool.
This is a good version, but I think he just really tears it up in the 1968 version. Elvis got a letter from his true love saying she loved him, so he's going to do whatever it takes to get to her. Travel night and day, running all the way, he's going to get there. This is a good version, but man, that 1968 version leaves this one in the dust. It really does. But I definitely see what you mean about, well, one was recorded by a boy and one was recorded by a man. And there's that moment in the 68 special where he takes his guitar, flips it.
Yep.
He's got it on his legs and he's like,
Yep.
I'm like, holy moly.
They allowed this on TV?
I saw a reaction video to that and the guy was just flipping out like, oh my God. Holy crap, this is a Christmas special? Whoa.
Can you send that to me later if you remember where you found it?
I will try to hunt it down.
Okay.
Yeah, and like you said, Rick Nelson also covered the song. And there are two versions. One has background vocals and one without.
Which one did you send me?
I think the only one I could find was the one with the background vocals.
Uh-huh.
And I have one without the background vocals, and it's a lot better.
Okay. All right. Overall, I have mixed feelings on this episode as a whole. On one hand, I was impressed with some of Elvis's earlier performances. On the other, I wanted classic Elvis. But I think if Elvis is overrated, wouldn't classic Elvis have bored me to death? And is Elvis even the best of his graduating class? Well, Carl was a better songwriter, Jerry Lee Lewis kicked ass on piano, Johnny was one of the greatest country artists ever, and Chuck and Little Richard were in classes by themselves. So what made Elvis great? Well, I guess he could sing, but there are better singers, and he had sex appeal in a way that was maybe slightly more family-friendly than Jerry Lee, whose piano needed a cigarette after. But the man was talented, and to say it was just 'cause he's hot does a disservice to the talent he did have. Yet there were more talented people. Was it 'cause he made the music of black rock singers more palatable to white audiences by being a white guy? Yeah, could be. But then didn't he kind of do his own thing later? I don't know how to feel about Elvis except that I love the Baz Luhrmann movie, and this episode made my feelings about the real man even more complicated than they already were. So
I guess they did. That's a lot to unload.
I don't know how to feel with this.
Well, you're just gonna have to
sit with those feelings for the rest of my life.
But I think the thing was like, yeah, Elvis made black music, quote unquote, safe for white audiences, but he also kind of made it unsafe in his own way with the hip wiggling and just his delivery, which just sent the girls into a tizzy and the parents into, I don't know what.
An aneurysm.
Bursting blood vessels.
Well, as the Colonel said in the Baz Luhrmann movie, he said he knew something would make money if it got people to feel things they didn't know if they should be feeling. And when Elvis is singing Baby Let's Play House, he sees this woman's face and he's like, she was feeling things she didn't know she should be enjoying. And he went, that's where the money is.
Yep.
And then there's also a scene where he hears Elvis's music on the radio for the first time. And this racist Southern guy is like, you get that music off the radio. And his son goes, no, Dad, he's white, and everything stops, and you can see the dollar signs flashing in Tom Hanks's eyes.
Ka-ching.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
I think the music that makes up the Sun Sessions was a Rosetta Stone when it first came out. It was, per Webster's dictionary, one that gives a clue to understanding for white rock and roll anyway. And maybe for black rock and roll. Like, this was kind of like Elvis's kind of like a gateway, and you realized,
there's better stuff.
He's doing Tutti Frutti. Wasn't there some guy, what's his name? Richard. Yeah, I should go listen to his version. Holy shit, this is way different. But it's still essential listening. And after that, proceed to his first two RCA albums, Elvis Presley and Elvis. And after that, you are on your own. And I feel the same way that you do about, he's the greatest of all time and the king of rock and roll, but there's something where it's like, I like him up to a point. I mean, he's got good stuff, but there's so much stuff I could never sit through. Am I really going to have to sit through the soundtracks of Roustabout and Speedway and Clambake? I just can't.
You could sit through the 68 comeback special, though, if you want to see any, of Elvis's, performances for film. Watch that one. That one's the only one you need.
Oh, yeah.
And some of his, live stuff for TV, like for Ed Sullivan and Frank Sinatra, just so you can have, an idea of the context surrounding Elvis when he became big.
And with Elvis, there's, so many what-ifs. With 68, where he stood up to the Colonel, it's like, what if he kept doing that? But did the Colonel have something over him? I mean, Colonel Parker got 50% of Elvis's 50%. No one gets that.
Well, there was a theory in the Baz Luhrmann movie because, it's loosely based on Elvis's real life. It's not fact. But what they kind of suggested was if Elvis was to find out about what the Colonel was doing and he did try to fire him, their theory was that the Colonel would have taken every single expense that he could think of and say, all right, you want to leave me? Here's what you owe me is severance pay. And they would realize that they would go broke trying to pay the Colonel back because he would nickel and dime them for everything.
He couldn't have the Memphis Mafia take him out?
That I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe, hey, Frank, I did a special with you. Can I borrow the Italian Mafia for 5 minutes?
Nice.
Make them go night-night for a little bit.
Nice.
And one scene that I will say about that movie, which is really sad, is when Elvis is performing in Vegas for the first time and they're cutting the deal to have him perform forever. They're playing Suspicious Minds. He's singing it on stage, and then when he realizes what's happened, he sings it on stage in a pure rage, and it's really cool to watch. Yeah. Anyway, all right, as always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Remember, the more you interact with the video, the greater chance we have of appearing on the YouTube homepage. If you follow me on social media, I post the episodes there. If you're friends with my dad, shoot him an email, and he'll send an episode right to your inbox. And if you like what we do, feel free to leave a little tip in the Ko-Fi tip jar. As always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. We will be back next time with another album to nitpick and gripe about. Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
2 things. 1, the plural of Elvis is Elvi.
And 2?
As in, there were many bearded Elvi at the Elvis Impersonators Convention.
And what's the second point?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The podcast has left the building.